Hello and welcome to a new devlog video for Peasant Uprise. The Kingdom of Wythorn is one of 3 adjacent kingdoms to engage in a long and tiring war that ended in a victory that resulted in a redraw of kingdom lines. Far south lies 2 provinces, Ashlyn and Swayne, which are the main producers of wine. The 2 provinces are normally referred to as wine country. For as long as people can remember though, Ashlyn and Swayne families had always been at odds with each other, each claiming to produce the best wine in the kingdom and beyond. At the king's court, King Frey used to make fun of such petty disputes, but after the war he had had enough and wanted to hear no more about this. He resolved to let Eldon Swayne and Frederick Ashlyn to resolve their differences. But King Frey was not really anticipating that this could lead to a civil war. It is well known that Frederick's final goal is to unify the 2 provinces under his command, allowing his family and name to be the one and only producer of wine in the kingdom. Some claim though that Eldon's objective was not that different. It's hard to say who started acts of violence first, since sabotage had been going on for so long. Eventually, Ashlyn forces were winning the conflict and pushed Eldon Swayne out on exile. This is where Peasant Uprise picks up. After covering the main storyline prior to Peasant Uprise, it may appear now very clear not only the need to have some levels or plots of land focused on production of grapes, but also the need to create a production line to develop wine. If you follow me in Instagram, you might have seen the low poly grapes model that I shared a couple of weeks back, and now this week it was time to move on to the main model, the facility that will transform grapes into wine, the wine press. As a solo game developer, I need to be as efficient as possible and reuse whatever I can. It's really not just being a solo game developer, as there is a very common saying in software engineering to not reinvent the wheel. So with that mentality in mind, I did reuse some existing assets that I had to create the wine press. It's really what I call an asset composition. I took parts of the cart, the wheels came from another asset, the bucket is its own container, I used the lid of a crate to form the base, and everything else I had to put together and recreate the UVs. I really enjoy 3D modeling, even though sometimes it's a bit frustrating, but I'm still very new at this, so I can only get better with time. I wish time was not a factor, or that time just froze for a week or so. Recently, I've been feeling the weight of time on my shoulders and this internal pressure to get things done ultra fast. There is a good reason behind it, but sometimes it's hard to enjoy what you're doing with such self-inflicted pressure. That is not to say that I'm not enjoying working on Peasant Uprise by any means. In fact, I'm delighted to be able to do this, but pressure is mounting up. I believe some tension is good to create that sense of urgency that gets you going, but too much tension can tip over very easily to the negative side. Creating a model to represent the wine press is just one step of the chain though. To become what I call a working point, it needs some additional items such as script that inherits from a working point class, which needs to be configured to define what it will intake and what it will produce, as well as what profession will be the most efficient at this work, as well as what tool is necessary to perform this job. It also needs a hover selector, working effects, a pivot point, as well as the necessary nav mesh obstacles so the peasant can walk right through it. But before we can even start working on the wine press, we need a way to create this facility. So once the model was completed, I needed to create a screenshot and the mechanism to be able to build this facility first. So now we have grapes as a raw resource, a mechanism to build the wine press facility, the working point that handles the behavior of this task, and we already had wine as a final resource. So since wine was already a resource, I don't need to add it to the market. The final step on this chain would be to add a purpose. In other words, what is wine good for? Well, it's good, I know, but in the game, why would I produce wine? Currently, as it stands, wine is a good commodity for trading, and that's good in its own right. But additionally, I did want to add the option to have a feast at a camp. A feast will require food and wine and music, and it will really have to impact the overall rebellion morale, which is a very important factor to keep your uprise fueled. The first question is brought in by the Broman90. Prototyping and planning started in September 2018, but I would say that actual development started in October, just about the time that I started these devlogs. Formaligator wants to know if there is a release date and if I have everything planned out for it. I'm afraid I do not have yet a concrete release date, and more focus on dev complete, which is a bit different from release. Part of the problem has to be with your second question, which answer is that I do not have absolutely everything planned out. Part of the reason is that I'm very visual, so my ideas flow as I'm building the game. I'm not one that writes everything down and then acts on it. Additionally, this is a first experience for me on building 3D games, so for that reason some things have resulted to take a lot more time than I had anticipated. What I can safely say is that my intention is to release this year, because to put it in simple terms, it just has to. Astor asks if you can bring items from one stage or level to the next. Indeed you can. What you produce or buy goes into your cart and you'll be able to take it along with you. Not only that, but most of the facilities built in one level, you will still be able to bring them along to the next. So that's all I have for this week. I really love you guys posting these questions, as it does help me revisit some of my decisions and it brings new questions or assurances to those decisions. With that said, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next update.